Don't do it to me.
Hey, you guys, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, but right now, whatever time it is you're watching this, hey, it's your girl, Coach Ebony Nicole, and I just want to say thank you so much for ending this week talking about edits with me. I am your writing coach and publishing engineer. I help you to build, design, structure, start, finish, and finally publish that God-given book. I am here to serve you, here to help you through the entire journey from start to finish. And tonight, today, this morning, whenever it is you're watching it, I have one of my dear friends. She was, I think you came along as my third or fourth editor.
Right.
After, you see this face?
After the tragedy you went through, yeah.
Yeah, that face. And
the granny face.
Yeah. And it's just like she came along and it was like, and I'm like, where have you been? And she's been ever since. So I want to introduce you to one of my dear friends. She started off as my editor, and over time she has become so much more. My friend, chief editor, A.B. Brumfield. A.B., introduce yourself to the people, please.
I'm shy. I don't know why you do this to me. So I am A.B. Brumfield. I am the founder and CEO of Perfect Tense Editing. And I will say that I've been doing this for some decades, like decades with an S on the end of it. So it's been a while. This is my passion. Like, it's something that I love. And I'm so glad she picked me to talk about this because I will never shut up.
You don't have to. I want everybody to know about editing. Like, for me, it is by far the most important part of the publishing process.
Yes.
I don't care if I said this all the time. I say this all the time. I'd rather you spend $3 on a cover and $1,000 on editing, because it'll be so well worth it, as opposed to spending $1,000 on a cover and it's like, well, who did not edit this book? Like, this is crazy.
Right.
So one thing I want you to tell the people is the importance of editing, because as I'm not an editor, so I'm an author and a writing coach, but I can tell you it's important. But as an editor, why is that important to your manuscript?
The editing of a book makes or breaks your book. So you could spend $1,000 on the perfect cover, and then somebody opens your book and they literally see words that when they read it in their mind, it sounds like Charlie Brown's teacher is talking. They have no idea what you're talking about. You have just branded yourself. Exactly. You have just branded yourself as someone who is uneducated, who has no idea what they're doing, or who just took every thought they had in their head and just put it all on a piece of paper. And if you don't have a story that's compelling, but that's also told well with editing, you have just branded yourself as an idiot. Basically, you just put your book out there and you're like, yo, I don't know how to write, but read this. Right. Editing is so important. I don't understand why people think it's okay to put a book out there. Sense. Like, if you read, would you want to go to a movie, right? And they promoted this movie to be really, really good. And you walk in there and somebody says, yo, is you is my friend? Like, what? What did you just say? I'm walking out. I don't even know that. Right, like, is you is my friend? No, I don't like you. No, learn how to talk. Go get your whole life together. Right. So you have to, don't just put a story together, but make sure that the people can read the story, because editing really makes or breaks your story. You can have an excellent story and your editing sucks and nobody will want to read it again. You can have a bad story, and if you have an editor or someone who does creative development to help you put it together, that story can go from it sucks to you're on the New York Times bestsellers list. Yeah. So the writing part is easy. The editing part will kill you. Yeah. Yeah. And people don't understand that. Like, some people get all stuck in their head about the writing, and then it's like they think they have inked the best-selling novel in all of history. And it's like,
Give it to your editor now. I don't need it.
And I start crying.
Yes, you
I
do.
literally get it, and I start crying, and I start screaming, my corneas, like I can't take it anymore. So yeah, while they're thinking they've inked the best book, I am in here crying, not crying. I'm in here crying, like, what is this?
I remember when we first started working, 2013. I think it was January. March. Okay. Oh, January. I had first met with our mutual connection.
Yeah.
And then we started working together in March. Okay.
Yep.
And I was afraid to write after that for like 2 months. No, let me tell y'all, if y'all ever want to read this critique of my very first book, Eve's Confession, when she critiqued my book, I was stuck. I'm like, nope, this is not my gift. I'm done. But I let my friend read it, and he said, Ebony, this is the best review of your book you'll ever get. He said, she's not saying it's terrible. She said, you have gaps and you need to fill them. You kept her interested with the card, the black card. She said she wanted to know what that's about, all these suspenseful elements. She was like, the things that are the problem, AKA the editing, you can fix. Yeah. I'm like, no, I'll never do it again. I'm never writing. I'm done. And here we are, 10 books later. Yay. And it was all
that was funny. You were so sad. That was funny to me. But what I did with you is something that I'm doing again, and it's called a manuscript review.
Yes. The thing
and what I do is you give me your manuscript, and I read your manuscript, and I don't just say you need editing. I say this needs to be edited, and this is why. This needs to be worked on, and this is why. This area is good, but it could improve. This area is excellent, so it should stay the same. So I give like 5 to 7 different points in the book about all the things that need work, the things that are already excellent, the things that can be improved. So I'm not just saying to you, you need grammatical editing. You need something that I created is called creative development, which means I will help you. I will teach you how to write your book, because everybody can physically write a book. Some people can creatively put a book together, but there's a technical side to writing that a lot of people don't get. And so I will sit down with you, and if you want creative development, I'm walking you through chapter by chapter. And it's one of the things that I did with you was so fun. I would call you up and I would say, what does this mean right here? And you would be like, oh, it means this, this, this. And he was thinking that over there. And I would let you talk for like 10 minutes. And then I would go, why didn't you write that? Yeah. And you would be like, I don't know. And I would give it back to you. And then you would go write it and give it back to me. And then we would start all over again. And I remember I used to read your chapters out loud to you so you could hear what they sounded like.
Yep.
And you will be like, I wrote that? That doesn't sound right. So sometimes having somebody read it to you also makes you hear it, because as the author, you write so much, you have that book memorized.
Yes.
But when somebody else is reading it to you and your characters sound really weird, you get it without the editor having to say anything.
But they don't sound weird up here. And that's what I was telling people, like what is up here doesn't automatically land on the paper. It doesn't automatically end up in the Word document. There's a disconnect. I don't know how it happens, but there's a disconnect that happens. And it's like, I was thinking this is what I intended to say. But when it comes on the paper, it's like, I'm missing.
You said that a lot. You said that so many times. You were like, but I was thinking it. And I said, well, your readers aren't in your head. So they don't know what it is that you're thinking. And it's funny because as the editor, after talking to you for a little while, I came to learn your writing voice. So I would know what you were trying to say, but I would still call you and be like, girl, listen to this, knowing where we were going to get. And you would be like, all right, I'm gonna work on it and send it to you in the morning. Like you were so depressed. You were so depressed, but it was like I had to take you through step by step, not just how to create it, but how to technically put it together. You caught it on quick though.
And you know what? That comes with trusting and being open to critique, because some people just aren't open. Oh, they'll count it as you're hating, you know what you're talking about, you're stopping their greatness. No, look, if you want the best out of your book, you have to be open to the criticism of someone who can help you pull the best out. Because if you get that, put your book up there on Amazon, you're selling it and all this stuff, and you get a reviewer like Blaze, who connected us. She told me that. She was like, with just these, I think I gave her 2 or 3 chapters. She said, I can destroy your book. But she said, and I had, now this is a funny part. I had, let me think. I had just started my relationship with Christ. And she said to me, something told me to reach out to you. Now, years later, I realized that was the Holy Spirit talking to her to get me to be connected with you. But she was like, I normally don't do this, but I need you to talk to an editor. I'm like, I did. I spent like I think it was like $2,200 to $2,500 between 3 editors. Oh, so you were my 4th editor. So it was 3 editors for that one book. And I'm like, what? And I remember when you opened my document, what did you say your Word document did?
My document was like, it couldn't even record how many errors you actually had. It was so crazy to me. I was like, it would not tell me how many errors. I spent some months, but I went through that book because the thing about it was you had the creativity. It was all up in there. And there were some scenes where you left it to the author's imagination to figure out what was going on.
Yeah.
There were other scenes where you started talking about this, but then you did a flashback to something else. And then you came back from the flashback back into that scene. And so it was like, what's happening right now? So this went so much deeper than editing. This is where it was like, okay, creatively she needs to be developed.
Yeah.
Let me put this book together for her, or better yet, let me help her walk through this step by step so she can see. And I remember calling you the comma queen.
Yes, I still, listen, I am still, I don't want anybody to take my reign. Don't do it. I am still the comma queen. I will put commas where they don't belong. But I tried.
Nobody's come. 7 years, nobody's touched it yet.
See?
But it was that, but then you would explain tremendously over here and explain nothing over there. And it was like, they were just sitting down having dinner, and now she wants to stab him. Why? And you're like, because he made her mad. I'm like, okay, but why? And then you will go into this long thing, and I would be like, and that's not in the book because why? It was a good journey, but by the time it was over, when you came out with the second one, 5 Hearts, that was like, oh man, she doesn't need this. But you were like, but I still need it because I'm scared.
Can you please? You was like, you put 1 chapter in there twice. Other than that, I must have
you just needed regular editing.
I'm like, I don't really. Okay, are you sure? Let me tell y'all, one of the things that I love about her is that we were able to build a relationship. And that is very important when it comes to editing and to having a relationship with your editor, because you have to be able to trust them with your vision. You have to be able to trust them. That's your baby. My book is my baby. So now I got to let you babysit my child while I go to work. I have to trust you, and so
I had to get to know all of my clients.
Yeah.
I have to talk to them because when it comes to editing, I need to know the sound of their writing voice. Mm-hmm. So if you send me a document in the email and I just read it, I don't know you. I don't know where you're trying to go. I don't know where you're trying to take the characters. So I'm editing your book and I have no clue what you're trying to do. Mm-hmm. I can only go based on what it is that you write. And clearly, if you are coming to me, you need help.
Yeah.
So I have to spend time with you. I have to say, okay, I've read the first chapter and these are the things that I found. Tell me about the character. And sometimes I'll be like, oh, you know what? I remember a time that happened to me, to get them to open up. And once they start to open up, I learn their view of things, how they think. And so if I have to like fill in the blank on something, I could be like, well, I know what she would say
Yep.
versus what she wouldn't say. Oh, wait a minute, this sounds too much like me and not enough like her. So by the time it's said and done, your document is perfected.
Yep.
And now I know you. So the next time you call me and you say, I need you to edit something, I don't have to talk to you at all because I already know your voice. And if I have questions, we're close enough that I can call you and say, what?
Yeah, and you do.
I do. I really do. I'm like, excuse me, what?
Yeah, and you're like, Ebony, what is the? Why are you yelling? What is? You guys won't get that because y'all don't have 7, 8 years into this.
You get fussed at.
Get it.
You get fussed at. Like, what? You do get fussed. You get fussed at. I will call you and be like, oh my gosh. I will call you and be like, okay, this is garbage. You write better than this. What the heck are you doing? I will be so mad.
I'm like when we did a praying wife in waiting, I was like, I'm so scared to write this. I don't want to. You were like,
why?
I'm like, I'm just okay. You were like,
okay, so just write it. But I don't know
what's it.
But you know how to write. I know, but so then why don't you just write it? That was one of the funniest because you were really distraught, like in real life distraught. And I was like,
real life.
What? But you know how to write. But you don't no, I don't, because you know how to write. And then finally I said, just write the book. Just write it. Okay. And you're like, okay, I'm gonna do it Saturday. And then Saturday came, and then the next Saturday, and then I call you 2 weeks later. And I'm like, so I haven't received your chapter in this book. You know, can you tell me what's happening? I'm scared. And I was like, oh my gosh.
And that is when it comes to building that relationship, a working relationship that develops over time, of course. So when you first meet your client first meets you, there's like, okay, I heard you were great. I heard you were magnificent. I heard you could take my book to new heights, but I'm still not sure like how you going to treat my baby in my absence. So what are some things people can do to prepare for their book to be edited? Like for me now, I'm good. So if you like, well, this Ebony, what is this? Girl, I don't know what that.
You really do say that. You really do say, girl, I don't know what I was trying to say.
Girl, take it out. Because I don't know. But then but now I'm okay now. I'm fine. It's like, oh, okay, y'all work on that. My bad. So as someone who's never gone through the editing process, what can they do to prepare? Because you're going to critique their book. What can they do to prepare? And I think
I wish I had a piece of paper. I promise I wish I had a piece of paper because this will be the perfect, you know what? Hold up. Because I need people to see. I need people to have a visual. This is your document. You're going to send it to me. And you're going to say, I need help. And I'm going to say, do you want regular editing? Do you want in-depth editing? Do you want creative development? What do you want? You're going to say, I want creative development. And I'm going to say, so what are you writing? Because I'm going to decapitate you. I'm going to make you feel bad. And it's not my intention to make you feel bad or destroy your world. But here's the deal. If you're coming to me, my reputation as an editor, that's on the line. Your brand as an author is on the line. Your name as an author is on the line. I don't want my name attached to anything that's lousy. So whatever I have to do to pull out the best in you, I'm going to do it. And if your feelings are hurt, suck it up, Buttercup.
That's
because when we're done, you're going to be proud to say, I want to put this book out. You're going to be proud to have your name attached to it. So many people call me and they're scared. Well, let's take that back. They're not scared. They're like, my book is awesome.
Yeah.
And I read it and I say, your book left me in awe, not in a good way. Here's all the things that we can do to improve this. And I'm going to push you so hard. Like there's going to be arguments. We're gonna be fussing, but keep in mind you're fussing at an editor who is doing everything she can to make your book great. So we can argue back and forth. I don't care, as long as the finished product makes you proud. And when somebody picks it up, they can critique it, but what they won't say is the editing was garbage or the development of that book was garbage.
Yes.
So when you come to me, I'm going to be as real and as raw and as uncut as I can possibly be. And you'll end up in tears. And then I'm going to hang up with you and be like, why am I so mean to people? And I'm going to start the whole process all over again.
Well, then that's right. And we need that, because sometimes we can come with our book. My book is perfect. I just need like basic editing. Basic editing is like the very last thing you need. And so it's opening up and being able to receive criticism, but constructive criticism.
Right.
Like I posted earlier this week that of all things people can judge, let not the editing be one of them.
Right.
Because that will definitely take it. And if you run into an avid reader, they're going to chop it up. Then they're going to put it on Amazon. Some would say, if I could give this a 0 star, I would.
Because of the editing. Yep. Yeah. Some people do say that.
Yep. And so I find when I'm looking at books, that are like 4 or 5 stars, I go and look at the 1 and 2 star reviews, because those are typically the
most honest review.
They really are. Instead of the 5-star books reviews can be like, oh, this was good reading or a good book, and this character and that character and this character and that character, or if it's fiction, and I like how she told her story about this, I like how she told her story about that. But then when you go on the 1 and 2 star reviews, they're like, listen, where was the transition? I had that issue.
Yes, your transitions. Yes.
Whoa! Don't laugh at that.
It was funny because you would be talking about. Let's say you were talking about a party, and the next thing you know, they were at church. Girl,
what happened?
How did they get to church? Like your transitions were non-existent. It was so funny.
But that was all a part of it. That was all a part of the learning process. But then you would get that in those 1 and 2 star reviews. There was no transition. The characters, the name spelling of the name was A-B in the beginning, then in the middle it was B-A, and at the end it was E-S. It's like,
yes.
What is happening here? And so that is why it's important to have an editor who knows what they're doing. So for you, what genres, because there's a wide variety, of course, but what genres do you particularly work in?
Well, I have actually made a pretty big switch. I used to be into the erotic books a lot, and now I am sticking with romance as I transition into Christian editing, because that is, I learned what I am anointed to do. So I don't just edit with this. I have an anointing for all things word. And I can look at what it is that you're trying to say, and not just know from the creative standpoint what you're trying to say, but also from the spiritual standpoint what you're trying to say and where you're going with it. But not only where you're going with it, but where the Holy Spirit would be leading you. I could tell you this is biblically inaccurate. So I am slowly transitioning into all things Christian, because that's my joint right there. That's who I am. That's my niche. That's put me in there.
Yep.
Oh, don't get me on the phone talking with you about where you're going in your spiritual book, because we'll start now and hang up tomorrow morning.
That's right. We've done that.
Yeah, we have. Couple of those conversations came through.
And then it'll be like, oh, let's talk about the book. So we talk about the book for like 15, 20 minutes, and then it'll just
4 hours later, it's been all
and
gone.
What did you want me to do about the book again? I don't even remember.
See, it's important when you get an editor, though, make sure your editor is an avid reader. Because if you get somebody that's editing your books and all they know is grammar, they're going to edit and they're going to make sure it's grammatically correct. But if they're not only an avid reader, but a well-rounded reader, because you have to be able to read some of everything. Like I always say this as a joke, but I've been literally reading books since I was 5. I've read some of everything across different races, across different genres. I tried to get into different language books just to get a better understanding of things. So when somebody gives me a book, I'm not just looking at it from one perspective. I have some decades with an S on the end of it
Yes.
of reading behind me. Like historically, I've read so many books, it's ridiculous. So when I'm editing, I'm pulling from everything. I can tell you, this is what this genre sounds like. This is what this genre sounds like. I've had people come to me and say, I want to write an urban book. And then by the time I'm done, I'm like, you do know that's romance, right? I understand it's about Black people, but you do know that's African-American romance, right? Because him, them having one bad argument where she called him the N-word does not an urban book make. I'm sorry.
For real.
This is romance. They just had a bad argument.
They had an argument.
Right. So you have to have an editor that's also well-rounded in reading, because if you get an editor that says I'm an avid reader, ask them the genres they've read. If they only name one, that's the only genre you might want that person to edit in, because they don't know about the others.
Oh, that is good.
They can't, how can they help you?
That makes sense. So if someone only edits urban lit, you could not edit Christian lit.
No, because then Jesus gonna be gangster.
Right.
You're gonna have Jesus gangster. Peter gonna be cutting off more than ears.
Oh,
like
Lord.
It's just everything.
Oh, Jesus.
It's gonna be gangster. You can't turn. I mean, you can turn the 12 disciples into gangster if you want to, but that wouldn't be a really good idea.
Right.
So you have to have an editor who knows the genre that you are writing, or who can look at your book and say, this is romance. I know you think it's urban, but it's not romance. I mean, it's not urban. This is romance. So don't just pick somebody because they say I'm an editor.
Right.
Find out their history with books, not just from an editing standpoint. What have you read? Tell me the types of books you read. So I can literally be like, okay, so I started off reading Encyclopedia Britannica because my grandmother made sure that I was a nerd. I read so much stuff by Judy Blume. I've read so many things by Richard Wright. Then I start moving on. Okay, so Nora Roberts is one of my favorite romance authors, but she also has a pseudonym named J.D. Robb. And this is a white person, because, some Black people don't want to hear anything about another race.
Yeah.
And I get that. They love their own race, but I'm pulling in from everything that I have ever read, and I'm pouring it into your book. So you're not just getting an editor, you're getting a well-rounded, avid reader.
See?
When I start editing your book.
See? And this is what people need. You have to make sure your editor is like you said, well-versed in that genre. They know what they're talking about, and they can help you. Don't be afraid of your editors, you guys. I cannot stress enough. Your editor is your friend. He or she is probably the last person to read your manuscript before it's off to the masses. You want to make sure it is the best that it can be. You can come in afraid, but you will leave out stronger. You will feel more confident in your writing ability, and it will help you in your craft in the long run. Do not skip this part. I would encourage you, when you budget your money, reach out to some editors. Say, what is your average? How do you charge? Do you charge per word, per page, or by line? How will you bill? And you get your money together based off of that estimate. Because one thing you don't want to do is spend all the money in the wrong places, and you don't have money for the right places. It's like building a house. You got the foundation. Now you want to build the walls and got the windows. But when it comes to the roof, you're like, well, what about some shingles? Or we got $1 million house. We want to put some rusty shingles so we can go to the to over here to the place and get some free shingle. Really? Yes.
You got to build your book like you build your house. You are absolutely
you have
correct.
To lay
the
out
cover
everything.
Is the roof. All people care about is the roof. And it's like the roof and the walls, but when you get in that house, the house can be beautiful on the outside, and then you walk in and it is empty, or you just see a whole bunch of trash just thrown all over the place.
Yep.
That's what happens when you don't get an editor. Or something else that happens is you get an editor, and you want your book done in 20 minutes.
No, maybe 18. You're exaggerating.
Okay, all right. It's like, when can my book be done? I'm not the editor. If you're looking for the editor that's going to give you a 4-day turnaround, I am not that editor.
Yeah.
When I'm going to take, the way that I work is I take a chapter or two. I ask you to send me a chapter or two, preferably the first two. And I read it, and then I edit it, and I show you exactly what it is that I'm going to do. So you're not just going to hear me say, I can do this, this, and this. Give me your story. Let me show you. And then I'm going to show you, you either need just editing, you need creative development, you don't need any of that stuff. You know, you have to trust me that I'm not just trying to make money off of you, because at the end of the day, this is your livelihood.
Yep.
I'm not trying to take your money and then send you out there looking stupid, because if your first book is garbage, you won't eat on the second book. And then people are going to be like, who edited your first book? I don't want my name attached to that.
Yeah.
So as important as it is for you to have a good name with your book, it is important for me to have a good name as an editor. My reputation is everything. I eat by my brand, and so will you. So I'm going to make sure that we both eat, and that we're both fat, and we both need to be at the gym. And we both breathing and talking about, oh, that food was good. Like, I'm going to make sure we got what we need when it comes to editing.
Yep. And I just want you to tell people, what are some things, two to three things they should do when, besides, making sure they write in that genre, what are some other things they should ask their editor? 2 or 3 things they should ask their editor.
One, this is not necessarily something you should ask your editor, but don't set a release date until your editor is done with your book.
Bam. Thank you.
Because I
used to do that.
Pet peeve number 1 through 937.
I love that.
Do not set a release date until your editor is done with your book, because you don't know what's gonna come up. I don't just do grammatical editing. Why do I always struggle with that word? I don't just do grammatical editing. Okay, got it. I'm gonna call you and say, I've edited your book for grammar, but your characters don't make sense. You have characters that are cracking up in the beginning of the book, and in chapter 2, they want to fight and nobody knows why. Are they bipolar? Explain to me what's happening with your character, because I don't get them. I'm going to say, your book is pretty good, but I have no idea where your book takes place. What's the location? Or better yet, what year is this?
Yeah.
I'm going to guess based on the music, but
you still could be wrong.
This music came out 20 years ago. So is this book taking place 20 years ago? When I'm reading your book, I need to see what you wrote. I don't want to just in my mind read a bunch of words. I need to see it. So I need you to put me in the place. So I will say to the person whose book I'm editing, I don't know where your book's taking place. So do you present a whole bunch of things to you, and you get to decide what you want me to do? If you just want grammar, I will just give you grammar, but I will give a disclaimer and say, I don't know what you're talking about in your book, but the grammar's on point though.
I don't see talking about your book.
Right. It's just like, because I would say I edited that stuff, so the grammar's on point, but
everything outside of that,
no clue.
And that is one of the important things. You gotta let your editor do what he or she does. Let them do it and trust that they got you. I trust. That's why not 8 years later, we're still rocking and rolling, because I know you know your stuff.
Something else. When I say that something in a book is grammatically inaccurate, it is grammatically inaccurate. Do not come back at me and say, but that's the way I want to say it, because my famous quote is, don't put my name on that book.
That whole part.
I will finish your whole book and tell you that's wrong. Don't put my name on that book, though. You don't want to change.
What was it? You said one of my current clients you're working with.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing her book. You said it read like a what report? And explain what that means.
Okay, so it reads like a police report. And what happens with, I have a family full of police officers. So what happens is they write these reports and the reports are just the facts. That's it. There is no emotion. There is no thought. You don't know what they're thinking. You don't know how they're feeling. You don't know if they tilted their head to the right, if they're moving their body. It's Bobby loves Jenny and Jenny loves Dominic, and Dominic and Jenny got married and Bobby killed both of them. The end. Excuse me, what?
What happened?
Right, like, where's all the other stuff? So
Yep.
there are some people that really write, they just write the facts. And that's not a story, that's an essay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't want to do that to an essay because essays they're kind of passionate and they're kind of good. So yeah, police reports, don't just tell me the facts. That's not,
because the police officer is not telling. The police officer is not going to tell you. Well, we came to the scene. Ebony was distraught. She was crying. She was like a little frazzled. There was snot running from her nose. She could barely speak. She was stammering her tongue, and then she finally told us that somebody stole her car.
Right. Isn't that terrible?
They'll just come up. We got a report. Somebody stole Ebony car. We can't write like that. We got to fill in that gap. And that's why she is who she is and does what she does, y'all. Let me tell y'all. Again, I'll say it until the last breath that I have. Editing is important. You have to take it seriously. There are so many different types of editors out there. Mm-hmm. Do your research. If you're not sure what it is that you need done to your book, reach out to AB and get the review thingy, which I call it. The review thingy.
The manuscript review.
That thingy. Have that done. Okay. And let her tell you, this is what I see. And this is how I can fix it. Whatever it is, you need this. You really, really do. So AB, I want you to tell everyone, how can they find you? They're like, you know what? I need her expertise. I need her anointed hands, her anointed wisdom on my book. How can they reach out to you?
So because of my friend Ebony, who really got me about an hour ago, I've just started my Instagram, which is called Perfect Tense Editing. I do have a Facebook page, but again, I was just chastised by this woman to become more active on it. But for the most part, you can hit me up at Mahogany at Outlook. And I got to spell mahogany because I always have to be different. And it's got like 47 letters and you got to spell it right or you will never find me. So it is MAHAUGHANI at Outlook. If mahogany doesn't have 10 letters in it, that is not the right mahogany. It's just not. That's all I'm saying. And the minute you start talking to me, just expect your feelings to be hurt. You're going to be mad, but know that by the time your book is done, you're going to grow. Like, I'm going to take you on a journey where you go from, let's say you wrote, he walked into the room looking for his enemy. He saw him, pulled out his gun, he shot him. So let's say that's what you wrote. By the time we're done, it's going to read, he walked into the room and saw his enemy sitting in the corner looking smug. There was a smirk on his face, and he knew that that smirk was because he had killed his mom and got away with it. But Dante was tired of Enrico's bull. So Dante walked up to him, heart racing, could barely move, but he was determined to kill him. And while he was still wearing a smile on his face, Dante pulled out his gun, put it to his head, and said, anything you got to say before you breathe your last breath? Before Enrique, or whatever his name is, could open his mouth and say a word, Dante blasted him. You want to know how he felt. You want to know what he saw. You want to know what he was thinking. You want to know all of that stuff. And by the time I get done with your document, your readers are going to know all of that stuff. And you're going to know it too, because at first you won't.
Right. You see my mouth, I'm like,
girl, writing is
Dante,
my
I was kind of scared for Dante. And Enrique like, no, bro, you really, see, now you don't kill his mama. Because in the first part, you didn't know. You just thought he just walked up on him and shot him.
But you don't know why.
This was revenge.
Right. He's never killed anybody before. You don't know this. So his heart is racing and he's scared. And he's like, man, I ain't got my mama. So, you know, you gotta take your readers and put them in the scene. If
scene,
your readers
yeah,
aren't
yeah.
in that scene, that is a lousy writing. That's the
Yeah,
best way that I
yeah.
can put it. You need to have them in the scene to the point where when they put the book down and go run to the bathroom, they look up and be like, wait, how I got here?
Right.
Because they were so deep involved in that scene. And as an editor, that's my goal. So I don't just do editing. Creative development is to pull out every piece of creativity you have in you.
Yeah.
When your book is over, I want you to be tired and need a vacation.
Yes, yes.
If I got it all out of you, the next time you talk to me, you're just gonna hand me the document and say, don't call me. I'm telling you, don't call me. Just fix it and send it back. That's how tired I want my clients to be. They'll be mad at me, scared of me, but no, this woman is gonna pull it out of me because I'm pulling teeth, hair. Look, when
Everything.
you leaving
All these
like
little
700
grays.
pounds lighter, right? Like
All
everything
these
is
little
coming out.
grays, one by one, little tweezer, one by one. Yep, I'm pulling that ab. I'm pulling that. What is that, Ebony? I don't know. I don't even know what
I talked to my editor this morning. I got 6 gray hairs. I can't stand her. What is she doing? She's making my book good, but she works on my nerves.
Like, we need it. We need it. And I personally want to say thank you for not only being my editor, but for being my friend, one of my dear, dear trusted friends, and for pulling me and pushing me into the writer that you know I can be. And so even when I fall short, you still like,
what are you doing?
Really?
Like, you get it though.
I taught you this.
Really get it.
Really? I'm sorry. My bad. Okay, I'll start over. Look, people, I want you all to go follow AB on her Instagram, which she set up during this call. And I want you guys to follow her. Get her expertise. You need it. Ask her questions. She doesn't mind. Just don't be trying to, take all the milk when you need to buy the cow. Okay?
That whole part, yeah.
That's all we got for today, you guys. Thank you so much again, AB. I am Coach Ebony Nicole, the writing coach and publishing engineer. I will help you design, structure, start, finish, and finally publish that God-given book. God gave it to you because he believed, he know he can get it through you. You can find me on my website, ebonynicolesmith.com, on Instagram at Coach Ebony Nicole, and on Facebook at Coach Ebony Nicole. Twitter, I'm on there, but I'm not very active. I'm getting around to that. My Twitter is at Coach Ebony Smith. Until then, I want you all to have a great day. Enjoy the journey of becoming an author. It's beautiful. You will have some pitfalls, but when you have me and AB in your corner, we can show you how to maneuver those things so that you don't have to pull out grays. Okay. Thank you all, and I'll talk to you very soon.